This is Gary Butterfield.
This is Cole Ross.
And this is Monster My Podcast.
And this is the Nomad.
This thing owns.
I love this.
There's a monster in my podcast.
Even its Latin name is really good. Umbra Mortis.
Yeah.
Death Shadow.
Yeah. This is like, Shadowrun doesn't have, like, it has this instead, because Shadowrun has this weird, things are kind of realistic, which it sounds silly to say, but it takes place in the real world, you know?
It just doesn't just have like straight up like ghosts who possess people.
Right. They don't just straight up have like monsters and stuff.
Right.
So when they want to do just like a monster-ass monster, they have to try to tie it to a real world, and this is how they do it.
Mm-hmm.
And the results are pretty great. Like we saw this with the Will of the Corpse Light, which was really cool. This thing is probably the next. This is the coolest thing in here since the Corpse Light.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. So it's an astral being thing. Does not exist in real life, you know, other than just as a patch of darkness. Like you can't really see it.
Oh, I thought you were talking about like our world.
Oh yeah,
you mean it does not?
Everybody, calm down.
It does not.
Everything's okay.
Yeah, I was gonna say though, this does read as more plausible than just like a straight up ghost or whatever. No, it manifests as just like a patch of darkness on our side of the world. However, the illustration makes it look like it is just a blanket that blew off the line and like got snagged in a tree.
Yeah, but then when you look at it, it's made of muscle. Like if you get close to the blanket, it's actually like a thin sheet of muscle, like something you would dip into at like a hot pot restaurant.
Yep.
You dip a thin slab of beef. So these things have a gimmick essentially. What they do is they possess people, and then once they possess them, they drive you into a violent rage.
Yes.
And it's because they feed off of people's like death rattles essentially.
Right.
Like the agony of when people die is how they eat. The cool thing is they get into, like, let's say they get into a mouse or whatever. That mouse gets real pissed, eats a bunch of crickets.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I see it actually. But eats it. Gets so mad to eat crickets. Eventually, that mouse picks a fight with a rat.
Mm-hmm.
It can't beat the rat, no matter how angry it is. So then, when the rat kills the mouse, the nomad eats the mouse's things, and then just like travels on up the food chain.
Yeah.
So these things just are like upward mobility. 100%. Like these guys are negotiating raises in terms of the amount of food they get all the time.
Yeah. So, I mean, like, that's why it's plausible that they like end up at humans. It's not because they target them specifically. It's just because like they're near the top of the ladder. Imagine one of these taking over a juggernaut. That's
what I was going to say is like, that's the inevitable, like that sounds like a Shadowrun campaign to me.
Yeah.
Like you follow the trail of one of, like a society of these things. Mm-hmm. Like one of these things is, usually they're solitary, but like they actually get together and form like a group. Yeah. And then like you maybe hear about it because you get hired because a town, maybe like something just like the new armadillo or whatever is going ape shit. You take care of that. They move on and then it's like a cult. Mm-hmm. And then like you take on the cult, and eventually they take over a juggernaut. Yeah. And like you move, level up and kind of like this is a story hook creature.
It's like you take a contract to like go figure out what happened in this town, like a factory town around one of these corporations or whatever. Like you just straight up got like Jerusalem's lauded. Right. Yeah. Like, okay, it's just been like that. It belongs to them now. And then just like, there's just this pattern of towns going empty as it kind of travels along. Right.
As this roving band of maniacs.
Yeah.
It's pretty rad.
Yeah.
Like real good shit. And because this is a unique power, like it has the longest like note section in the book. Like it tells you how it works to take over. And like, in game, like this should never happen to the players. Right. Like it's not fun if this happens to like, oh, now you're a berserk, you don't have any control. Right. You kill your friends, they kill you. That's not super fun. I think, but you can make this, just make the players immune to it. Mm-hmm. Just through, do all will saves behind the screen and just have them make it. Yeah. Just roll some shadow dice or whatever. But this is a really, really cool adventure idea, I think. Yeah. No, and even the shadow talk, like people are just really, most of the time there's a lot of false bravado around these things. Like, you just take this, not enough explosives will kill it. Like pretty much all of these folks who previously have demonstrated that are like, no, this is actually the scariest thing. And I don't understand how anybody could be calm about these existing. Well, and they do the thing where it kind of backwards explains like just like psychos, like psychopaths, essentially.
Well, one of them says like, oh, some people say that nomad possession explains a lot about the random violence in the inner city. It's like, first off, okay, that seems a little bit hopeful, but like maybe in this world,
it's one of those things where like if it's almost like a shitty idea because it's trading on the fear of insanity, which is like a real thing,
right?
Like that's a fear that I have and I understand. The idea of taking these people who just have like need medical help and then saying like actually they're possessed by monsters,
right,
is a little bit gross.
Which is just what we did for centuries, but
exactly. Like, but that's what I was gonna say is like it's kind of gross, but it also has such like a history,
right,
of and making that like the actual answer to it, like making it correct, is like a fiction trope I like.
Yeah.
Like take this dumb wrong thing people believed and make it actually right. Doesn't feel like problematic to me. It just feels like a weird imaginative like play space.
Yeah. Or what you do is like you have both of those things exist at the same time, and that's part of the mystery and trying to like figure it out is like
suss that out.
These things, I don't know. This would be like weirdly exploitative, but like these things, like one of these things running rampant in an asylum or something like that.
Yeah. And then you have to play whack-a-mole,
right?
To try to find it. So real into it.
These things are great.
Yeah, I love them. I'm exceedingly excited to like. I will probably never run another Shadowrun game in my life if I had to guess. But if I ever did, like that is the Nomad is going to be my hook for the campaign.
Well, it's also an idea that you can just take and apply to something else, make it a unique monster and a different thing.
Yep. It's a well, I mean the idea of doing it in Shadowrun is really cool just because there is a juggernaut in it. Like this taking over the Terrasque, which is already like just a big angry monster. It is not nearly as fun,
right?
But yep. I think this is just going to be one of those like non-funny adventure hook.
I think
educational episodes where we just tell you about a really cool monster idea. Feel free to use in your campaign.
Yeah,
like it's neat.
Do it. Occasionally we provide a service.
Yeah. Most of the time we don't. 99% of the time we have not justified our existence.
Yeah, we're wasting our time and yours.
Yeah, this is 1% of the time. Mazel tov.
Brought to you by our backers at patreon.com/Duckfeed.tv.